Welcome to Stream of Conscience, brought to you by Democracy for America, Fairfield County, where we believe that change is possible, and you can make it happen. I'm your host, John Hartwell. Our guest today is Ron Pinciaro, Executive Director of Connecticut Against Gun Violence. CAGV was founded in 1993 to reduce gun violence through legislative advocacy, and Ron has been the helm for 11 years. Connecticut has the fourth strongest gun laws in the nation, yet clearly a new approach is needed in the wake of the horrible slaughter of school children last month in Newtown. Ron, welcome to Stream of Conscience.
Nice to be here.
Ron, Connecticut has very strict gun laws, yet Adam Lanza was able to be armed to the teeth when he went into the school in Sandy Hook. How could that have been prevented?
Well, first of all, as far as that specific weapon is concerned, our original assault weapons ban was enacted in 1993, so it's about 20 years old. And
you're talking about one here in Connecticut as
correct.
opposed to the national one,
Right?
Okay.
They happened about the same time,
Right.
But, so it's 20 years old, and manufacturers, frankly, have distributed, sold copycat sort of weapons that were designed specifically to get around the features that were banned and the models and brands that were specifically banned on the list of those specifically banned. What needs to be done now is to go back and strengthen that ban and to try to close some of those loopholes, if you want to call them that, that exist now simply by the fact that sometimes it's outdated. And some of these things were done, specifically to avoid bans, both the federal and the state bans. Some of them were called, one was called the PCR, politically correct rifle. Another, the AR was the PB AR, the post-ban AR. So that's how they were able to avoid, coming within the ban by the features that were pointed out in it.
So the ban in Connecticut, which is, I understand, the fourth strongest in the country, what exactly does it prohibit?
The ban really had three aspects to it. The statute had three aspects to it. The law had three aspects to it. First, it banned select fire weapons. Those are the kind of weapons that you can switch modes on, from semi-automatic to manual, etc.
Mm-hmm. And semi-automatic is meaning what?
Semi-automatic means that even though you can fire very rapidly, you do have to pull the trigger each time, as opposed to automatic, where you just pull the trigger and hold the trigger, and as long as you hold that trigger, it's going to keep firing. Okay. That's basically a machine gun, and those are completely banned.
Right.
Automatics are completely banned. The difference really is that the tests have been done, and an automatic weapon can fire 30 rounds in 2 seconds. A semi-automatic can do it in 5. That's basically the difference.
So you can squeeze your trigger finger quickly enough to fire off 30 rounds in 5 seconds.
That's correct.
So that's 6 rounds a second.
Yes.
That's all right. And so really, when we're talking about something that is so-called semi-automatic, it's pretty close to being automatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So back again to Sandy Hook for a moment, and Adam Lanza went into there with this Bushmaster, I think it's called.
Bushmaster 223, yeah.
Bushmaster 223. What kind of gun is that?
It's a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
It was capable of accepting magazines. And
the magazines are where the bullets are.
The magazines would hold the bullets and fit into the structure of the rifle. And I think I've heard some different things. I think basically it was 30-round magazines that he was using, and he was able to rapid fire. In fact, according to some of the reports I've seen, specifically in the Hartford Current, there was one recently. it was when he was trying to reload another magazine, and I think he dropped the magazine on the floor, that those 6 children ran out of that classroom.
So he had multiple 30-round magazines with him when he walked into that school.
That's correct.
And
And he had 2 handguns.
and he also had 2 handguns. Okay. Now, the weapon that he used was legal. Yeah. The possession of that weapon, I understand, was in his mother's name, was also legal.
That's correct.
And had he had any kind of training in using this weapon? Because I had read that his mother used to take him to the shooting range.
Right. He didn't have any official training because he didn't have a permit himself, which requires a certain amount of training, 8 hours of training with a trained instructor. As far as what his expertise was from his range activities, I don't really know. But
I don't know.
Didn't need much.
No. So, what is your group working on? Connecticut Against Gun Violence.
Right now, we're working on our own and with legislators to put together what we think is the most comprehensive package of gun violence prevention bills that the country has ever seen. Where that will all come out will depend on some of the events of the next week or so, meetings, some negotiations.
So I should point out that we're doing this show in the very first week of January. So, and the legislature is now just coming into session in Hartford, and that's where you'll be working.
That's right. The session starts on January 9th.
Yeah. Okay. So what exactly are you proposing to be changed to improve on what are already recognized as very strict gun control laws in the state?
Well, certainly the strengthening of the assault weapons ban is being, talked about by pretty much everyone.
Well, what does that mean? Strengthening of the ban?
As I said, there was those 3 categories. Select fire category is a separate one that doesn't really have to be touched. It's an entity of its own. We would probably be looking to add to the list of specific models and brands that are banned.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to look at the features test. Again, the current ban bans the weapon if it can accept one of these large capacity magazines, and if it meets any of the 2 military features tests. Maybe that has to be strengthened. Maybe it should be 1 feature.
Now, my understanding of the federal bill, which expired during the Bush administration, was only in place for 10 years. This assault weapons ban passed under Clinton, expired under George W. Bush. That by making this features requirement needing 2 of any features, one of which was the ability to accept large capacity magazines, that they simply stripped out all the other features that had been in the ban and allowed, and so therefore these guns are legal under federal law because they only have 1 feature, and the 1 feature is the large capacity magazine.
Well, no, the large capacity magazine is not considered a feature in that context. The way the law is written is if it can accept a detachable magazine and has 2 military features, what might be pistol grip, flash suppressors, telescopic viewers,
Bayonets, yeah.
Shrouds to cover it. Because you see, what the ban was really trying to do was to separate a rifle, which is used in hunting, for instance, where your aim is at one object. Military weapons have a very different objective, which is to spray, which is to be able to withstand an attack from multiple enemy. So it's that spraying feature that these things allow. A pistol grip allows them, a rifle is held up here on the shoulder. Okay, these collapsible stocks, for instance, allow you to hold it here and spray. That's really the difference. It's the spraying feature that the military characteristics bring to bear to the weapon, and that's not used for hunting.
Right. It's my understanding that the military which used to pride itself on marksmanship and individual, every Marine is a marksman, for example, found out that really in battle, soldiers are not taking aim. They're simply laying down a field of fire. They're spraying, as you said. So even in the military, there is no longer a focus on individual shooting, but rather on, to say, laying down a field of fire. Why would we ever allow civilians to have that capability?
That's my question. It's the $1 million question. Yeah. Gun owners, advocates, the gun industry, the gun lobby, one of their arguments is that define an assault weapon for me. The assault weapon, in their parlance, is a prohibited term, doesn't exist. It's clear what we mean by assault weapons. Those that have military style features that are, contradictory to features needed for hunting, for hunters.
Well, so these magazines, I suppose all of the guns we're talking about, except the magazines, detachable magazines. So then the question is, what's the size? What makes them more dangerous, more like an assault weapon? Is there a standard here for saying, a detachable magazine with 6 rounds is not as dangerous as one with 30? Where do you draw the line?
Well, where the line seems to be drawn now is with 10.
Mm-hmm.
10 is where California is, which I think has the strongest assault weapons ban and large capacity ammunition magazine ban. And that would it would certainly help in the regard that the more frequently you have to reload, the better chance you have of at least reducing the mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly happened in the Gabriel Gifford situation, for instance. It was when he stopped to reload that the firearm was taken away from him. He stopped. We had the situation here in Newtown when he had to reload and drop the magazine that 6 kids got out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something. We have the Second Amendment. So to ban all semi-automatic weapons, for instance, would probably be a very difficult constitutional question and argument. It's been done.
Mm-hmm.
Australia, for instance, had a similar situation,
Mm-hmm.
school shooting in, I think it was 1993, about 20 years ago. And what they did immediately, and this was a conservative government, they banned all semi-automatic weapons. 2 rounds was their limit. Made it very, very difficult. You had to have a use for handguns, to get handguns, farmers, etc., members of gun clubs, were allowed. And they paid for the weapons. All the weapons had to be turned in within 6 months. The government paid for them by levying a 2% income tax on the entire population for 2 years.
So they bought back all
them all back.
Bought all the guns back.
2% income tax.
2% income tax for 2 years on the entire population to buy back all the guns, and basically have they eliminated guns from the society?
Never had another incident like that in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Had 40 gun homicides last year compared to the United States. We had 9,411.
It's a smaller country, but it's not that much smaller.
No.
Right. So, what about having gun owners register their guns? Is that a requirement today?
No.
No.
No, there's no state that requires registration except for Hawaii.
Okay. And what's the experience in Hawaii?
Experience for Hawaii is they have the lowest gun death rate in the nation, by far.
Okay. Does Hawaii require people who register to take training?
Yes.
Yes. Does anyone require people who own guns to purchase insurance to make sure that if something happens with their gun, that someone will pay for it?
No,
No.
no, that's not required anywhere. We did look into that a number of years ago. As you said, there is no state that has it, but I have to tell you, of all of the many contacts I've had from the people in general now, that's the most common thing I hear from people. They can't understand why, why there aren't insurance requirements.
So you're working with an organization which I imagine 5 years ago no one was paying much attention to. And you've been working in this industry for over 10 years now, 11 years as executive director. This organization's been around for 20. Suddenly, Newtown happens, and there is an explosion of interest. And I attended a meeting here in Westport a few weeks ago where at the church there had to have been 300 people in the room, maybe more. I didn't do a count, but the place was jammed. I got there late. I had to stand not even in the back. I was outside the hall on the other side of the doorway trying to see what was going on. The place was just completely jammed. So clearly there is a huge amount of interest in this. Let's talk about that interest, how you're seeing it here in Connecticut, across the country, and what people can do if they want to get involved.
Yeah, the interest has been incredible. We've never had anything like it. It's been all over the world, but most importantly, it's been right here in Connecticut. That meeting that you talked about and the fervor that you may have seen at that meeting
I did.
Has not diminished one bit. It's growing.
Mm-hmm.
I just came from a meeting now, also here in Westport, it happened to be, where the organizers, who have been doing a terrific job of doing this, have brought leaders from many towns in Connecticut who are going to be leading the effort in their towns into the kind of things that that need to be done in order to organize this. We're expecting 50 of them to be here this morning, much closer to 100.
So these were organizers. These are not just local people here in Westport, but these, in fact,
all over
were
the state.
Organizers from around the state. And instead of having 50 people, you had 100 people show up.
That's right. At least 80, I think probably 100.
Okay.
Because, again, there were people outside the room. It was at the Westport Library.
Hmm.
So, yeah, the fervor is increasing.
Mm-hmm.
And
is yours the only organization working on this, or do you have others?
we're the only organization, statewide organization, that
Okay.
actually works on, the legislative issues
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing. There are having groups forms. Newtown itself, the Newtown United Group. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
No.
but they've been growing very, very fast, and
Okay.
we've been in contact with them. And what we're doing right now is we're focusing this effort really on two things. They're organizing their towns, as much as they can. Each organizer is asked to bring in 100 people. The focus is going to be the February 14th March for Change up in Hartford at the Capitol.
Right.
That's going to be a big event. On January 27th, which also actually happens to be in Westport, the documentary Living for 32, which is about the Virginia Tech shooting, and features Colin Goddard, Virginia Tech student who was shot 4 times in that, and unfortunately doing very well now. Colin will be there himself. It was produced by Maria Cuomo, the daughter of Governor Mario Cuomo, sister of Governor Andrew Cuomo. Showed at all the major film festivals, award-winning, terrific 40-minute documentary. They're going to be there. Stephen Barton, who is from Southbury, Connecticut, who was one of the victims of the Aurora shooting, was shot in the shoulder in Aurora, will also be there, and there will be others.
Where will that be?
That's going to be at the same church that you talked about in Westport, where that other rally was going to be.
Christ and Trinity.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. So there are there's that showing in Westport coming up on the 27th of January. There's a march on the 14th of February in Hartford. And tell me what's going to happen there.
There will be a walk at the Capitol from Bushnell Park right nearby to the Capitol. There'll be staging there. We expect and hope that the governor will be there. Many of the legislators will be there. It's on a Thursday when the legislature will be in session, and we are hoping to have as many people as possible be there at the time. There is a website called marchforchange.org at which people can sign up for it.
Okay.
And they're signing up in droves. The numbers just keep expanding, about 100 a day. So there's been
who
tremendous...
in the legislature is leading the fight for you?
There are a lot of people. The first committee, the committee of cognizance, if you will, for gun issues, is the Judiciary Committee. So that will really be the first stop for the legislation. There are a number of people who are working on legislation. Senator Beth Bye from West Hartford, for instance, has been. Senator Martin Looney from New Haven, who is the majority leader, is proposing legislation. A number of other legislators have been, and we'll be in meetings with them over the next couple of weeks with our own proposals, and we'll try to, reach a package that...
Where's the governor's office on this?
The governor just announced yesterday that he's assigned a commission to investigate all aspects of it and report back to him.
What's the timing on that?
The timing, as I understood it, was for March 15th. We think it needs to be sooner than that, but we'll see with that.
Okay. So if people want to get involved, there's your organization, and you say there's some local organizations. Where can people find out about what's happening in their town, or if there's nothing happening in their town, what can they do to start something?
The best way to do that is to go to the marchforchange.org website to sign up. That automatically feeds the names into our alert system as well, in which we will update everyone on the progress of the legislation and what's going on, and when it's time to contact their legislators, when we're getting ready for a public hearing, all the steps that are necessary along the way to get final passage of a bill.
And are there other public meetings around the state that you know of that people should be on the lookout for?
There are a number one. All of the organizers, pretty much of the towns, are all arranging their own public meetings. So there is a whole series of them coming up. And again, the best way to get that information is through marchforchange.org.
So marchforchange.org will, if you sign up, you'll be put into an alert system. If you go to the website, you'll see information about meetings in Hartford, the March in Hartford, and other things that are happening around the state.
Right, as well as the contact information for the two main organizers who are leading the statewide effort, who are both from here in Fairfield County.
And you mentioned before we started that you're hearing the same level of activity around the country. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Many states. As a matter of fact, Illinois, for instance, just got their assault weapons bill out of committee yesterday, and it will be going next to the Senate for a vote and then to the House. So that's moving. I'm getting tremendous industry. I mean, I work with all of the national groups as well as all of the other state groups, so I'm in constant contact with them. And I'm, getting constant requests for about what's going on here and how things can get to their states.
So very quickly, because we don't have a lot of time left, but Connecticut is historically a gun-producing state.
Correct.
What's going to be the economic impact of what you want to see happen on the state of Connecticut?
Well, what we're doing really involves, just the state of Connecticut. I can't imagine the economic impact to the manufacturers would be that staggering and life-changing for them. I imagine that they will oppose any legislation that comes up. But if we're no stronger with our bill than, say, the California or New York markets are, which both have assault weapons ban and bans on large capacity ammunition magazines, the difference would certainly not be as significant as that. So I don't see a tremendous burden to our state in that regard.
Okay. Well, Ron, with lots of things we could talk about. We're just about out of time. We didn't talk about gun shows and the gun show loophole. I know that there are other things that you're working on. It's a huge, huge issue. I think it's one whose time has come, and you're right in the middle of it. So thank you for all the work you're doing, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me here.
That's our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. You can catch all our shows on YouTube by going to youtube.com/user/DFATVnet. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, and you can send comments or suggestions for a show to info@dfa-tv.net. If you'd like to learn more about progressive political action, we meet on the first Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. at the Silver Star Diner in Norwalk. We'd love to have you join us. Remember, change is possible, and you can make it happen. This has been Stream of Conscience. I'm your host, John Hartwell. Thanks for watching.